Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi, everybody. I love the new intro with the music. It's so much fun. I'm Paula Swazi, the Executive Stage Director of the Metropolitan Opera, and I'm so happy to be back with a fantastic young baritone named Will Liverman. I'm so happy that he agreed to come talk to us today. And I'm thrilled that we'll get to hear a little bit about his time in Magic Flute, but also some of the other shows that he's done with us at the Metropolitan Opera. So welcome, Will. There he is. Hey, Will.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. So I want to say, first of all, that the first time I met you was in Chicago at the Lyric Opera of Chicago, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm trying to remember what show it was.
Well, I think you were a young artist, and I remember working on, it was an aria from Die Tote Stadt.
Oh, that's right.
You were doing a coaching, and I was like,
final year.
Yeah. Yes, and I was blown away by your voice. And then I think you went to Minnesota.
Yes, I did
and then
yep.
Came to the Met to do. Was your first thing Marnie?
My first thing was Marnie. That was my debut in 2018, I think. Yep. Yep.
2018, yeah. So I'm really happy, actually, because we've had some, hi, everybody. We've had some fantastic, singers who are in middle of their careers towards, who have been doing this for a long time. And Will, you're really at the beginning of your career. I mean, you're not 18, because the beginning of a baritone's professional career happens a little later generally.
Yeah, right.
But you're still, like, you just made your Met debut 2 years ago. So it's actually really, I think, for our listeners and our camp participants, it's great for them to see somebody who's just starting out. And I am thrilled to get a chance, because you're watching the Magic Flute this week.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And we'll show some pictures of you as Papageno. So they won't see you. They'll see, I don't remember who it is, but they'll see a different baritone as Papageno. And, but we do have some pictures of you, because that was just, if I'm right, last season? Wasn't it?
Yeah, just this past season. My performances in January. It seems like
in January, right after. I know, doesn't it feel like after the global pandemic, it's like a whole new world?
Like I've aged 10 years.
So, right? I know. I have a lot of more gray hair than I did, So listen, I'm going to start like we always do with a 90-second life story. So I'm going to set the clock.
Oh, wow.
And you're going to tell us, tell us where you're born. Don't leave anything important out. And, see what you get done in 90 seconds. All right. You ready?
Let's try. Gosh.
Go.
Okay. So I am originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. I grew up with a big gospel background. So, when I, started getting into music, gospel was a huge foundation for me. I started playing in the church and singing in the church. I discovered opera in high school. I attended the Governor's School for the Arts in Norfolk, Virginia, and that was my introduction to classical singing. I did my first, performances. Actually, my very first opera was the Magic Flute, except I played Zarastro at age 13. And continued with Governor's School for 4 years. And that was really what piqued my interest in pursuing opera. And then I went on to did my undergraduate degree at Wheaton College in Illinois, just west of Chicago, and went on to Juilliard for my master's. I did 2 years there, and then I auditioned for the Ryan Opera Center of Chicago, of Lyric Opera of Chicago, and did that for 3 years right after I got my master's completed. And I've just been freelancing ever since then, and stepping out into the real world and doing auditions. I did a lot of competitions early on, and trying to get my name out there. And it's really been a great journey so far, and I'm I'm really happy to be here. Oh, is that 90 seconds?
That was perfect. That was
Okay.
90 seconds, like on the dot.
Boom.
Very impressive.
Made it.
So I didn't know that you grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, in
Yeah.
Virginia Beach. Fantastic. Did you like growing up near the ocean? And
Oh yeah. You know, when I was young, my folks would take me fishing, and you know, just to be by the water. I'm actually, I must admit, I've lived by the ocean my whole life, and I still don't know how to swim. But no, but it's just being close to the water, and you know, it's just like a feeling of peace and being around, you know, so much green and nature, and it's such a beautiful city. So every time I'm able to go back, you know, I love uh, you know, visiting family and heading down to the beach and relaxing, and
oh, that's
yeah.
great.
Mhm.
So I'll just tell you that I was a lifeguard and I used to teach swim lessons. So
Oh yeah.
I will quite happily, and Ariella is telling you that she loves fishing too. So I
Oh
will very
yes.
happily, when we're allowed to like be near each other and in a pool, I will teach you
Yeah,
how to
right.
swim. I
I will
promise.
take you up on that.
So listen, I think it's like amazing that your first opera ever was Magic Flute,
Hmm.
and that you did Sarastro. So at age 13, did they change the key for you? Like how you couldn't hit those notes, could you?
You know, surprisingly, as a younger kid, I mean, what I don't know what I was doing really, but my voice actually sat lower, so I like could get those notes out. I mean, I did take them up. I couldn't sing those. Those like kind of like, you know, like very kind of groggly down there. But it was weird. Like I started off as a bass, whatever that means, and as I went to school, I kind of transitioned to bass baritone, and then when I was in grad school, you know, I've discovered my top, I guess, and you know, switched to baritone. So I kind of went this way,
Right.
and yeah. So
And Eric Owens was saying that he kind of went the other way. Like he started with more high notes,
uh-huh.
and now he definitely sits in a lower range. So
Right.
and he was pointing out that every voice is different, right?
Yeah,
And
that's the thing. Hmm.
you have to go with it and work
Hmm.
with your teacher and see. Now,
Right.
I know we have a couple of video questions, so I want to make sure Dan gives us one of those.
All right.
And then we'll see what the question is.
Great.
My name is Daphna, and I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. My question for Mr. Liverman is, what is easier and more difficult about singing in German, and what is easier and more difficult about singing in English? Also, you were really great in Akhenaten. I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you so much. Oh, let's see. Starting, I guess, with German,
Yeah.
because you know the flute that I did in, you know, the Tamer productions in English, I did my first Papageno in German in Central City, and of course, the very challenging thing about that was, you know, Papageno is such a wordy, you know, he never shuts up. He always has something to say, and just for the fact, you know, I'm not, you know, a native speaker of the German language, you know, I have to translate everything, and just the process of doing that and spending a lot more time with the text made it more difficult, just because you know, I'm not a native speaker, so it took a lot of work with the dialogue. What's easier about German, I would say, you know, people might say that because of the diction it makes it harder to sing, but it actually is a very beautiful you know, language to sing in. It's one of my favorite languages to sing in, honestly, when I do art song, and when I'm presenting arias for competitions. I love the sounds, and I just love how it sits in my voice. So that's the easier thing. In English, I would say the easier thing, of course, is it's you know, my native tongue. So like I don't have to translate anything. I can just look at, you know, what's going on, and just go with that. And the harder thing about English is, because I know English so well, that it's easy to mix up words. You know, because certain productions of flute have different dialogues, and it's easy to kind of mess up what dialogue is what, you know, like you say a slightly different phrase or a slightly different word. So just keeping up with the specifics of what I'm saying makes it harder, just because you can, you know, just substitute different words when you know when you're a native speaker. So yeah.
So Daphna, that was a fantastic question. And I want to ask you, she mentioned Akhenaten. What language did you sing in Akhenaten? What was your part?
Actually, a lot of the things that I had to sing were just kind of like made up syllables that kind of all, we just repeated it over and over again. That I guess, have overall theme and idea of what we're doing. But that was also difficult because keeping up with what syllable I'm on, like what meter, and a lot of it repeats, it just, that was very challenging, but also rewarding in a way when you see it all come together. Yeah.
So this is a great question from Clara saying, was it hard to sing? Did you sing in Egyptian? I don't know if you had anything in Egyptian or Sanskrit. And then she says, or was it easy just singing ah, ah, ah? But really it's hard, right? Because what you were just saying, like you're trying to count, well, which ah am I on? How long do I hold this one for? Like, I think I think Clara Akhenaten's so it's complicated and challenging for everybody, for the chorus, for the singers, for the orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too was, and it actually taught me a lot about stagecraft and like how we move on stage. Of course, one of the big aspects of this idea of things like moving in slow time, very methodical and slow, and things like being very specifically paced, you can catch like every detail. And that actually took a lot of mental work to just stay in that zone and moving very slowly, because you find yourself thinking like, how do I know how to walk right now? Like just simple things that when you're just in real time moving around, you just do it. But when you're having to slow things so far down, you start to process differently, and you're aware of more things that are happening around you, and you're just aware of so many surroundings. And it was very interesting and rewarding in that way, but a challenge to be thinking very slowly, but then have this constant what meter am I on, like it's but it all came together so nicely, and it was a beautiful. I was so honored to be a part of that production. I mean, it was one of my highlights of last season for sure.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's a funny thing. I think always what people see as easy or difficult is often different from what the people doing it find, right? Like something slow and sustained feels like, oh, well, that would be easy because you have more time. But of course, through that, you've got to control the mental aspect, the vocal aspect. You have to count, plus you have to stay in character. And, like kids often ask, well, how do you memorize all that stuff? And that's, in a way, for most people, the easier part. It's like putting it all together that starts to be the harder part.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
It's a very interesting, like memorizing things, and it's for me. I do as much work as I can on my part to have things memorized, but I've always found that you really, truly, if you're doing something for the first time, you really can't really get into your body and really memorize until you put it on its feet. And like when a director gives you a stage direction and you slip a word or something like that, it's just like the process of doing it over and over again with your body instead of just standing in front of a piano is just different once you put it on its feet, and you're working with people and you're interacting and responding. So all those things really help solidify when you're placing actions with what you're saying and getting your body it's just so different. It's something you can't really do by yourself when you're preparing a role. It's just you gotta get thrown into the fire and in that first day of rehearsal and kind of go for it.
Do you get nervous before the first day of rehearsal?
Oh yeah, first day of rehearsal is always, because it's always like the first day of school all over again. You're having to feel like you prove yourself and sing well for the new conductor and your colleagues, and it's just sort of like another audition in a way. Even though you got the job, it's you're kind of in a way, I mean you're already there, so it's like you don't need to prove that you're there, but you also want to those days are always stressful, especially if it's a music rehearsal and we're singing through something. I always want to make sure that, everything is, I wanted to go perfectly, but of course that's not, but just, you want to make sure that things go as well as they can. And it's always a nerve wracking feeling, you meeting new people, meeting the maestro, a new conductor, a new director, all those things. And how, all those things come together too, like the chemistry between people, and like,
right.
All of those things that you don't really know until you're actually there.
Until you're in the room. Yeah. I always feel that too. Like that's my most nerve wracking 24 hours right before the first rehearsal. Because even though you might have worked with some of these people before, you just never know what the chemistry is going to be.
Yeah. People's different dynamics and personalities and, how that all meshes together. And it's always like a sigh of relief when you get through that first few days and like, oh, okay, it's going to be a good process,
Right.
Other times, maybe not so much, but that's just how the job goes. And
yeah. All right. Now we have a great question from Mariusz in Canada, I think.
In Canada. Wow.
Hello, my name is Marius, and I'm from Prince Edward Island, Canada. What do you prefer performing? Modern operas like Marnie or Akhenaten, or more classical operas like the Magic Flute? And what are some ups and downs about each of them while learning? Thank you.
Oh, wow. What a great question.
Great question.
Wow. I'm kind of split, honestly. I appreciate the classical pieces just because, I'm always amazed by how these pieces have stayed with us for so long. And there's a reason for that. I mean, these masterpieces like Barber of Seville, Magic Flute, La Boheme, I love these pieces just because that's what got me interested in opera, just like the grand idea, like how the larger than life aspect of that, and the beautiful music that the composers wrote of the day that's lasted for so long, and getting able to play roles like Papageno and Figaro that have been done by so many of the greats, and having an opportunity to put my own voice in that gets me excited about the classical part of it. But I must say I love modern music too, because it gives me an opportunity. Like, for example, I did Charlie Parker's Yardbird with Opera Philadelphia, and that was sort of my first big new work, and it was a role that I got to create. I got to create the role of Dizzy Gillespie.
Wow.
Famous jazz trumpeter. And the cool thing about working on new pieces is that no one's ever done it before. So you kind of have a clean slate. When people come into the opera, they don't have any other recordings that they've listened to. They don't have any other people to compare to. You are creating this role and, giving it its sort of identity and stamp of what that is. And it's a special thing to create roles and to perform new pieces, because there are a lot of new, and relevant stories of today that need to be told. So, modern opera and presenting new works are, also important. So I'm kind of split there. Yeah,
that's a great question. And I think it's interesting because when you learn a new piece, you are really like, do you hire a coach or do you sit down at the piano?
Yeah, that's right. That's the last part. Yeah, the challenges of that. Yeah, it's so I have a background in piano, so like most of the time I can get through it. I can learn things on my own, but for new pieces especially, it's very important to have a coach that can just play through it, so you know exactly what things sound like, and going through those going through the part, because it's all new. You don't have any recordings to base things off of, or check tempos, or like,
right.
I wonder what this singer did, or like you're the one that's doing it. So in that way, it is a challenge when you're with new music, because with the learning process, it's new for everyone. So you're having to put in that work and make sure you get coaches that can play through.
Who are really good at reading new music.
Especially with some of the harder pieces out there. That are like really hard rhythmically or melodically. There's lots of things out there. So
I think we have a clip of you playing something on piano, so maybe we'll play that right now.
Oh, I'm Papageno, that's my name, and catching birds, well, that's my game. My snares are laid, my sights are set, I whistle them into my net. My life's my own, so bright and free, for all the birds belong to me. If only there were traps for girls, I'd catch a dozen by their curls.
I love
Oh goodness.
so much. So for those of you that didn't recognize, that's Papageno singing jazz in a jazz version. I adore that. I had not seen that before today.
Oh,
So I want to know like where that popped into your head, how you came up with that.
well, yeah. One of the great things, what I've always appreciated about my gospel background, and it's something that I kind of did, on my Instagram and Facebook. I started taking different melodies from operas and kind of jazzing up and making them more gospel, because I think that Mozart would have been a great gospel writer. There's so much soul in his music. Like if you just change a few chords here and there, you can keep the melody the same and create something completely different. So, when I was asked to do a little, something for flute for my performances, I just like, I was listening to Papageno and kind of like thinking of other chords to put in there. And, it all works out. The composers had some soul. They knew how to. They're really, I think a lot of gospel and jazz could be found, if they wrote different arrangements.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
joke o'clock. All right, let's see what we have today. I'm very excited about this.
Uh-oh.
All right, from Allison in Millbrae, California. Why did the cloud date the fog? I don't think I know this.
Why did the cloud?
Because he was so down to earth.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, now I don't know. Do we have another one or just that? Okay, just that one today. Nope, just that one today. We'll do another one later on.
Yeah,
now I know we have some pictures of you as Papageno. So I want to let everybody take a look at those.
Yeah.
There he is, playing the panpipe there.
Wow.
With the big bear.
I've never seen these pictures. I'm gonna have to find out who took these so I can have them.
Yeah, wow. They do them during your performance when you don't get a dress rehearsal. They take them usually from our booth.
Oh, wow.
That's cute with Papageno.
Oh. Wow.
There you are.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, ask the press department can help you. Okay. They can get you some copies.
Yeah.
So with this, and I know we have a question about the birds in the opera. So let's roll that question down, and then we can talk a little bit about Papageno specifically.
Hi, I'm Lucas, and I live on Bardstown, Kentucky. And my question is, are those opera birds real that you catch?
So Lucas, so cute. He's from Kentucky, and he wants to know if the opera birds, are they real, the ones that you catch as Papageno?
Oh, wow. They actually aren't real, but they look real. They have, they're these puppets that they work and that make them, my first aria, I come down and I have my cage and I grab one of the dancers, hands me the bird, and there's this little mechanism where I work for the wings. So visually, you can't see all the strings and things attached, but it does have that effect where it looks like I'm catching a real bird there. But yeah, it's puppets.
So they're all fake. So we don't harm. No real birds are harmed in the making of the
Yeah.
Magic Flute. And
Yeah, no harm birds.
oh, here's a question from Marion from Limerick, Ireland.
Oh, from Ireland. Wow.
She would like to ask Mr. Liverman what he liked the best from playing Papageno and what part of it did you like the least. And I was going to ask you that too. One, I was curious, this is a role you've played before. Obviously, you did it at Central City first. Did you do it anywhere else before you came to the Met?
I did it once. My debut of Papageno was Florentine Opera in Wisconsin, and that was another English production. And then Central City was my second time, and then the third time was at the Met.
Okay, so what did you like the most about playing the role? And then maybe you can say like what you liked the most and least about this particular production. I'm curious.
Yeah. What I love about Papageno is you just have the freedom to play around, you know, because he is, I mean, you know, there's a different, I mean, a lot of people want to just make him the silly character, and he is, but like deep down, you know, he is a human and he really has feelings and he wants to find, you know, his lost love. And there's, you know, a lot of affection in that. And, you know, the humanity of Papageno is definitely there, but it's so much fun though, you know, in those scenes with the ladies and Tamino and the trials. You know, one of my favorite parts is about Papageno is just the ability to play around. You know, nothing's ever the same. I can always, if I want to try something new, I can. I just have that freedom to do that because I myself, you know, can be silly, and there's so many things about Papageno that I relate to. You know, with you know, the humor of it, and just being able to play on stage is what's so fun about Papageno. Let's see, with that production, with the Tamer production, I loved all of the things that he interacts with, from the, you know, the puppets, he's running up and down. The one part, the least favorite part for me is for sure climbing that ladder. I remember when we had our stage rehearsal, and, you know, I got 2 performances, so I got to practice, but not nearly as much, you know, but I'm afraid of heights. And so when they're like, oh yeah, you'll just climb on up there and then, you know, slide across, climb back down. And I'm like, excuse me, what? You know, like I was so terrified, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, another baritone will do this. If I'm just like, no, I'm out. I'm not gonna, you know, do this part. So I just, every time I would, when the other baritone would perform, I would make sure that I had a chance to walk to climb that ladder part, so I got more comfortable with it, because it also has to be done in time. You know, I can't take, you know, one step at a time. You kind of got to really get up there, get across, and getting back down was so hard too, because I hate looking down, you know, the thing. So I'm like,
me too.
I had to kind of crawl my way and grab the thing and make my way back down. But it all kind of worked within that, because I just kind of played it up as like he's just terrified of heights, because I actually am. So that was the one part that I really dreaded doing. Once I got past that, it was like smooth sailing, more or less.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I am scared of heights too. I really have. It's just, I don't know. It's something, and it's very scary, and it's hard to, because with this production, so for the campers, Will, when he's saying he got 2 performances, so this past winter, we did a whole bunch of performances of Magic Flute, and there were several cast changes throughout. And what we do is we rehearse downstairs in the room. And I know you got your costume down there, because that one part where you have to rip off parts of it, you know, yeah, that's hard, because it's like, how do you open it?
Right.
So, you know, we rehearse those things in the room, but when you're not the person who opens the show, you don't get a full on-stage dress rehearsal with the orchestra, with lights. Like, you really, you know, we walk you onto the scenery before another performance. You get to, you know, if there's intermission, you can go in during that time. But it is a real, it's a real challenge. And I mean, for this role, for Will to have stepped in, I mean, it's amazing. It really is
Oh,
like,
no,
you know, it
yeah,
takes focus and it takes really steel nerves, you know, like
yeah,
you have to
yeah,
be just on it and ready to do it.
yeah.
And you were amazing and it was
Oh,
great.
thank
So
you so much. I appreciate that.
it's a definite, it's different than when you open the show and you get all the, you know, you usually
Oh
get a couple
gosh,
of stage rehearsals with piano and no
right.
costume, then they add your costume, you know, you don't get any of that.
Yeah, and that was honestly the most overall. I kind of the nerve wracking thing of like all those things you just said of like it's a different. I remember we were having that rehearsal of like in the duet where I have to pull all of the armor off, and just when you think about the details of like the costumes and actually like the it's one thing with you just have regular clothes on, but then to put all that stuff on you and then you just have that one go of it, and you're just having to just dive in there. That was a really like my first show was like my dress, but of course it still needed to be, I had to represent myself well and
Right.
do the best that I could and fix things in the moment that didn't go right and just keep going. I think that's also the challenging thing about the Tamor production. With no intermission, it might seem like, oh, it's shortened down, it's easier, it's simpler. But for the Papageno character, it's kind of, with no break, you just are going nonstop from the moment you enter until the very last duet. You don't really have a lot of time to like take a breath and look, all right, what's next? Okay, I just
Right.
remember as soon as I got on stage, I would leave, and then stage director would be like, all right, you need to go to the left.
Go
You
here.
need to go this way. All right,
Right.
go climb ladder. Okay, here's this prop. And I'm like, just,
Right. Like you get no rest and no
yeah.
time to even pause and think, especially in what you guys will see today is
Mhm.
it's a slightly cut down version. And so it just flies by, like, especially
Flies.
for Papageno. Yeah.
Yeah, it flies. Like
Yeah.
something like Figaro is almost easier because you have those breaks and you can, go back to your dressing room and take a little, breather, look over your text, look at your staging. But in that case, it was just, you go from, it's like Tasmanian devil, next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I'm done. Take a bow.
Right. Yeah, it sort of goes by in a blur, I'm sure. It's
Yeah.
and it is something that young singers tend to end up doing, is jumping in, like you're often covering, and so you jump in a performance or you do two performances. It's a way to get
Yeah.
started. So
Yeah.
it's like they give you the hardest thing to do. This is a little bit of information about Julie Taymor, an American director who directed Beth's production of Magic Flute, and she directed The Lion King for Broadway. I think she was the first woman director to win a Tony Award on Broadway, I believe.
No, I've never seen Lion King on Broadway.
Oh, you should. Oh,
Yeah.
when we come back and you're in New York,
Yeah.
totally worth seeing because the
Mhm.
puppetry work, it's quite beautiful.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. And you'll recognize that feeling now having done the flute because
Yeah, right.
the big bear kids, the big
Yeah.
bear is a puppet that's manipulated by
I see.
dancers holding sticks.
Wow,
So
okay.
yeah, it's fun. I know we have a question for you here.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Allie and I'm from Montreal, Canada. My question for Will is, when you decided that you wanted to become a performer, how did you make it come true and achieve your goal?
Wow.
That's a really good
Very,
question.
very great question. Is it Allie? Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for that. Yeah, it's the moment that I think I decided that I wanted to be a performer and pursue opera, must have been, I think, college, when Governor School like laid the foundation for me. I was interested in opera and I wanted to pursue it. I wanted to major in it, but I wasn't still sold on the idea of like, is this something I really want to do? I was kind of debating between like music education or, just something else. When I decided I want to do this in college, and I actually sang in the chorus of Lyric. They put out an ad in the paper, my voice teacher saw it and was like, "Hey, Lyric Opera of Chicago is auditioning people for Porgy and Bess for the chorus." And I was like 19 or 20 years old as a junior in college. And I auditioned and I got it, a supplementary chorus job at Lyric. And they also wanted me to sing Cavaliere Rusticana and Ye Pagliacci. So I did both of those courses in my undergrad. So having the opportunity to work on a professional stage, so early on, just was so eye-opening, and working with like such great singers and being around this like walls of sound and like the orchestra, the costumes, everything just like really clicked for me. Then it's like, wow, this is something I want to do. And how did I go about achieving that was just, might be a cliche thing to say, but it takes such hard work, and you got to kind of keep the blinders on when it comes to the career, because so many people have different paths. Some people, are shoot out faster and have success very early on. Others, it's a slower pace. Others may leave for a while, then come back. So to achieve that, I just had to stay, locked in and focused on the things that I had control over. So if I did a competition or if I had an audition, and it's always going back and be like, okay, what are the things I could have done better? What are the things I could have worked on to make this performance better? Whether it's what I'm wearing, or like just working on my languages, keep reworking that certain phrase with the high note or something. Just always building and figuring out, and always knowing that you're a student. You never get to a place where like, oh, I know everything and I don't need to practice. Or I think you always Renee Fleming did a master class with us when I was in the Ryan Center. That was one of the things that always stuck with me, is like, you never stop being a student of the craft, because as you get older, your voice changes and things change, and so you never get to a place where you always are striving for like good technique and singing well, but even with that, you always have to stay on top of that, and finding ways to get better at it, and finding ways to adjust and things like that. So to get where I am, it's keeping the blinders on, always focusing on the ways in which I can get better, because the casting stuff is beyond my control. Right. I can't spend time worrying about, I didn't get this part because of this and that. It's just focusing on the things that you can do to improve, and sticking in there. Sometimes it could be a challenge, and you might feel down, or like you didn't win the competition, or you didn't get the audition, but use those things as motivation. Like, you might fall down, but you get back up,
right.
And you keep going forward. So that's kind of the mentality that I kind of approached or used, and when I was just starting out in college and in grad school, especially as the competition got
harder, right?
Going from, I loved my education at Wheaton. I was like one of maybe 2 baritones at the school, so I didn't have to do much work to get the part. It's just like, you're the only baritone we have, so the role's yours.
Right.
But then, of course, going to Juilliard, I have people that I'm going to school with who are like covering at the Met, and
right.
Singers that are we're all on the same level, and just pushes you. It makes you want to work harder. When you're just a small fish in a giant pond of people. So you have to find those things about you, and that separate you from the pack, and like, what are those things that those qualities that you can bring to your music,
right?
That people really can hear on and be like, okay, there's something that this person has to say. Let's hire him.
Well, and I think it's interesting when you talk about sort of putting your blinders on. I know when I first graduated college, there were like 13 of us in theater, and I think, I didn't go away for any weekends. I didn't do any fun parties, because I was like, any theater job I can get, I'm going to take.
Yeah.
And I sort of put blinders on. It's sort of that same way. It was like, in a way, it was just persistence and doing as much as I could, so that when I got to a point where somebody was interested in me, I could say, whoa, look at all this experience I have, and you don't want to miss life. Like, you do need to live your life, but there's a sort of focus and an intention and drive to keep that going. That I think helps in the long run, and it's a long run. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You don't. There's no overnight sort of thing. Here's a question: how do you manage to do rehearsals in your daily routine life? At the age of 13, or maybe at any age, I think, because that's when you did your Zoroaster, right?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Is it Vikram?
Yeah.
I think I'm so thankful for my governor school experience, because we learned at a very young age through kind of trials and tribulations of how to deal with this, because governor school is a separate high school from my public school. So I had my public school. So we all had our public schools we went to from like 7 a.m. to 12. We had our science, math, reading, all that stuff to graduate high school. But then governor school was in the afternoon. So then we'd hop on a bus for about 30 minutes. You go from wherever you're coming from, like in the Hampton Roads area, where there's 7 different big cities that all these kids come from to go to governor school. And in governor school, they have musical theater, visual arts, dance. I was in the voice program. So we all came from our various public schools to come to governor school in the afternoon. So we couldn't do any extracurriculars or be on any sports teams. So at a very early age, we learned how to juggle 2 different schedules, and like going to 2 different schools.
Right.
Like a crazy week for me would be like, I would have a science test. I would then have a math class, and then a reading essay due. Then I got to hop on a bus, go to governor school, do French diction. I have opera survey. Then from 6 to 9, we have tech week for our show, where I'm doing, at my sophomore year, I did Figaro. We did in English, but like we did fully staged productions while also like managing, our regular schoolwork. So it took a lot of I mean, there are so many days where I did not want to get up, and my parents are having to like literally drag me out of bed, hop on the bus, and like do it all over again. But I'm thankful for that, because it just helped teach me how to not get so stressed out under pressure when things add up, and you just kind of can just put things in dividers and just
like compartmentalize. Take 1 hour at a time. If you're on the bus for 30 minutes, like I know my daughter, who does wrestling, plus she plays guitar and does all this stuff. If she's on the subway for half an hour, she's doing homework or doing some kind of reading that she needs to do for school. Like you sort of carefully plan and roll with it and do your best, right? Like it's tricky.
You're having to look at your time differently and be like, okay, I have this math thing that I have to do. I have 30 minutes on the bus. I can be looking at that, so I have that already done. So by the time I get home, I don't have to worry about it. You learn about how to do those things, and and
how to ask for help when you need it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Amishi, and I'm from New York City. My question is there anyone you look up to?
Wow. That's a really great question. I would say my music mentor was a guy, or my voice teacher, and also our chorus director at Governor School. His name was Robert Brown. And he was kind of, I call my musical father. He passed away, sadly, in 2008, but he was there with me when I started opera, and just taught me so much. And I really looked up to him, because he also came from a gospel background, and he was also African American. So he's someone who looked like me, and someone who I really admired and respected. And he knew so much about opera, and he'd always he actually probably inspired me to do all those gospel tunes, because he played gospel music really well, and like would always bust out in a gospel song. And just his personality is everything about him. For a lot of us that went to governor's school, we really looked up to him and admired him, and he was a big inspiration for me in wanting to pursue a career. He was the one that told me, like, you have a voice here and something special that you need to, pursue and do this. And
Wow.
And hey, he's always with me every time before performance. I just give him a little shout out, and
Great.
he'd be proud to see me do flute. And yeah, I'm really thankful that I got a chance to know him.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, I think we have another video question. Let's get that.
Right.
My name is Carmela, and I'm from New York City. My question is for Will. What was it like being in a young artist program, and do you think it's essential to a professional singer's career?
Great question. Thanks so much for that.
Thanks, Carmela.
Yeah. Yeah, like we were saying before, everyone has different paths to take. Me personally, being in a young artist program is it's vital, for different reasons. I think when I got into the lyric program, it kind of gave me a kind of an operatic like family, a foundation where I could, hone my skills and learn without having the pressure of like singing the lead role. A lot of young artist programs, you sing the smaller roles and you cover the big roles. So at this stage, you're building your resume, you're learning the repertoire. You usually have coaches that you work with that help you with languages and teachers in place. So it's just a great place, sort of like the farm league or minor leagues before you're going into the major leagues, right? You have to have a place to, really train and hone your skills. And that's why I think young artist programs are essential in that way, because it gives you the opportunity to do that. And it's great too, because a lot of them, it's a paid thing. So you're also supporting yourself, and you just have a sense of kind of comfort and care that you need at that stage before you step out into the world of, professional singing, and you're, kind of out there with everybody. And it's also great because, like I said, you have to be able to have a company to start with, and you're kind of building your base and you're building your connections, was important for me as I left, because I was able to get a lot of exposure as a result of being in a young artist program, which really helped me kind of, bridge that gap between, switching to young artist to professional with all the things that I learned and the roles that I had a chance to sing. Getting the stage experience too was important. But that's not to say, not everyone has taken a young artist route. There are a number of successful singers that skipped that entirely. Like they just went to school, like even a small school, and studied with a teacher privately for a long time, got an audition for a company, and just started working. Like,
I think Isabel Leonard was saying that last week. I spoke with her, and she didn't do a young artist program either. She did go to Juilliard, and when she came out, she started working at the Met. So crazy.
Everyone has a different, path. I mean, it's if you miss out on the young artist program, it's not law. I mean, there's, oh man, I've missed my chance on a career. Like there's so many different ways in which the career can happen. Whether that's you went to school and you went to Germany and just started working over there, or and that's always a special, interesting thing about working with people. It's just everyone has their own story. I remember a singer who got started off just singing chorus for like a long time, and then realized they wanted to be a soul singer and got their start singing chorus. It's a lot of different ways to get there. But for me, in my experience, I found that if you are doing a young artist program, they can be helpful, especially if you need that extra time when your voice is still developing. Just gives you a time to just let everything sit for a while. So
especially
you can, really
baritones, right? Baritones and bass voices. Your voices take longer to develop.
Right. I'm even finding now that my voice is changing. Like I'm early 30s. And I remember being, even from like 20s, like I'm still considered a very young baritone, but even from like 20s, I would want to give me all the high stuff. I want to sing all the highest. Give me the high G's, the high A's, high F's. I'll sing it. I want to do it. I'm a tenor. You know, like now in my 30s, I'm like, you know, I can sing high still, but like, you know, my voice is getting it's growing more and it's sitting differently. So yeah, the voice just is always changing, especially for, you know, the lower voices. Like I'm not going to really hit my prime until I'm almost 40, you know? So like, it's just navigating what the right things are to sing and like how, you know, you market yourself as you're, you know, continuously changing and developing your voice. And yeah, it's a very interesting career. Yeah.
Oh, it's joke o'clock again. All right, we're ready. We'll see if we come up with the punchline. All right, from Miriam in New York City. Question: what kind of opera singer paints as well as sings?
Mario Cavaradossi from Tosca. I don't know.
Very good. A coloratura. Oh, very good.
That's good.
That's a good one. That's cute. And I think we have a question. Here we go. Diego Morales from Argentina. My question for Mr. Will is, what inspired you to become an opera singer? I want to be one, and you inspire me.
Thank you so much, Diego. That's so meaningful. I really appreciate your words there. Wow. Wow, for me, you know, in addition to the experience I had working at the Lyric Opera in college, I think what really inspired me was the very first opera I saw. When I started out in Governor School, they take us to the Virginia Opera for the dress rehearsals. Like, you know, they have student night. All the students come by the busloads and sit and watch the opera. And my first show that I ever saw was Die Valkyrie by Wagner. And I fell asleep through most of it. Like I was, you know, I was kind of
very relaxing.
Very relaxing. But what kind of just was a light bulb moment for me that was just like the wow factor was when, I don't know what, I'm, you know, not too familiar with Wagner, maybe in Act 3, The Ride of the Valkyries. The dun 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 bum bum ba da da. And in my mind, growing up, I always thought that was from a cartoon. I didn't even realize that was from an opera. So like, I woke up and I was like, wait, I know this theme song. What is this from? And I look up, and here come the Valkyries like flying in, and then the orchestra's swelling up, and then the ladies, and then like all these things just started hitting me. I'm like, whoa, what is this? Like, it's just that feeling of just how different and amazing opera was just hitting me for the first time. Like that larger than life aspect and that combination of all of these different art forms kind of combined into one just beautiful thing that, you know, just hearing that theme and seeing that was like, I was hooked. When I woke up, I was like hooked the rest of the show and was like, wow, I could really get into this. So that was kind of an inspiring moment, you know, and that like piqued my interest initially. Yeah.
Well, you woke up for the good part, the Ride of the Valkyries, and then the scene with the dad and the Ring of Fire. Like, you know.
I read the program at the beginning, so I already knew what was happening, so that's why I fell asleep. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Well, I always say it's hard to have Wagner be your first foray into opera. I mean, for some people it hooks them, but others it's like, what is this? Yeah.
It's a commitment.
It is a commitment. Yeah, I've spent so much of my career working on very long Wagner operas. I don't know why, but it's just.
Do you get a chair to like sit down, or is you're always on your feet? Like
no, you know, I mean, like at the Met, we have the table in row M in the house, like when we're up in the theater, and you kind of perch so that you can run fast to get up on stage because there's never enough time, right? So you get your steps in on those days. And then like when we're watching the performances, we have a seat in the house and we have a booth that we can sit in and watch it like behind glass so that if there's issues, we can we can communicate with backstage that way. So we do both things. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
All right. I know we have another video question. Let's see.
My name's Dorothea, and I'm from New York City, and I have a question for Will. How did you know you had the right voice teacher?
Oh,
That's a good question.
very, very good question. How did I know I had the right voice teacher? I actually, my freshman year, I was assigned to a voice teacher, and I was just coming in to school. I had Mr. Brown was my first voice teacher, but like at the collegiate level, I tried it out, and I ended up switching halfway through my first semester of college. And I guess it was maybe you just kind of get a sense of, only what's happening with your voice, as much as a teacher can tell you, like, try this and do this. I just felt as I was singing, just didn't feel quite right. I just wasn't really understanding this person's method of teaching, and I gave it a try. I gave it, the whole semester, and I just, there was something that was telling me that I should, or look at other teachers, and I ended up switching, and I found a teacher that I really liked and stayed with this teacher for all the rest of my time.
Wow.
And I guess I really knew why I wanted to study with this teacher was the way in which she explained things to me that made sense, and it just clicked that way. And at least for me, in the way in which she explained things I felt as I was singing, it felt easier, and like things just clicked for me because the way she would communicate. So that's, I think one way with voice teachers and students, it's tricky. Everyone has, not every voice teacher is going to be right for everybody. It's a very complex sort of thing, and it's very personal too, because this is like your voice we're talking about. It's just your instrument. It's the most important thing.
Right. And they can't show you. We're with a violin teacher, they can take your hand and move it.
Exactly.
But they can't like stick their finger in your throat and move the chords the way they want them to. Yeah, they have to be able to somehow connect with your brain, which then can connect with your body and how it's functioning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a coach one time, it was master class, I can't remember who it was, but he said, your voice is something you can't see, and no one can no one can touch, and no one can see, but only you can play, which I thought was so interesting. Like you said, we can't look at the piano and be like, oh, this fingering is wrong here, like just physically see it. So having someone who can connect with you and like help you feel what your body is doing, like it's so much the feeling of your singing that's what's important. And so finding a teacher that is able to explain those things in a way that makes sense for you, and you feel that it's sounding right, and you're not getting tired, and once I had that connection, I knew it was like, okay, this is the right person for me.
Yeah. And it doesn't always happen on the first one. You have to be willing to try.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's and it's no disrespect to that teacher. It's just we all have different ways of receiving things and processing things. Some people work better with analogies. Some people need to actually know the scientific, like how do I but the main important thing is like you're making progress, right? And you're making those steps and growing every day.
Thank you. That was really interesting question and great answer. I know we have one more chat question, and then that's going to be it because we're just about at time. So from Talnev, if you're to pursue a different career, what would it be? That's a good question.
I was an only child, so I was a big video gamer growing up. I would want to be a video game designer, actually.
Cool.
If I knew anywhere where to start, I don't. But like that was I kind of had a thing for that when I was in school. I was like kind of thinking about pursuing that, but video game designer probably.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I think if I was going to do a different career, I'd be a doctor.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I see
yeah.
it. Yeah. Mhm.
I think emergency
I can
room.
see
I
that.
like those sort of high stress environments.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right.
I
So,
can see
and
that.
Aurelius loves video games. All right. So, I just want to remind everybody tomorrow we have the Career Corner with Susan. She's going to be interviewing Brian Waghorn and Howard Watkins, two of the amazing members of the music staff from the Mets that I know campers you've been working with already during camp. And I want to say thank you so much. Oh, yeah, there's the little banner. And as you've been seeing, of course, starting today at 5 o'clock Eastern time, you can start watching the Magic Flute. So enjoy that. And Will, I really appreciate your time. It was great to see your face. I'm glad you're doing
Thanks.
well and you're healthy and
Yeah,
staying safe
so
in
great to see you.
Chicago. And yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully soon we'll
Hopefully,
be
it won't be too long
in a
before we're able
rehearsal
to all see each
room.
other in person and start working again.
Yeah,
Can't wait for that.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And bye, campers. Take care. Have a great week.
Bye,
I'll see
guys.
you
Bye, campers.
next
Thank you guys
week.
so much.
I'll be back in
Yeah.
New York. All right.
Yeah, right. All
Bye,
right, guys.
everybody.
Thank you.